As single women over 50, we don't get many invitations to pause, reflect, and realign before the next year rushes in. This episode of Jesus People Sisterhood is part two of our discussion on the Diary of a CEO episode featuring Chris Williamson, where he asks one sobering question. If you don't fix certain things now, is next year already lost? We take that idea and bring it home into real life, real faith, and real seasons of singleness after 50. This isn't about hustle, grinding, or making 2026 bigger and better. It's about gently looking back at 2025 and asking, what drained me? What did I tolerate that quietly shaped my life? Where was God nudging me, and did I listen? What do I want to carry forward, and what do I need to finally lay down? We talk honestly about regret, hope, faith, fatigue, and the freedom that comes from reflection without shame. If you felt like time is moving fast, or that you're being invited into a new chapter but aren't sure how to step into it, this conversation is for you. As 2026 begins, let's make sure we're entering it awake, grounded, and walking with God on purpose.
Welcome to the Jesus People Sisterhood podcast, a place where Christian single women age 50 plus connect. I am your host, Janine Jordan, a Christian confidence coach and leadership mentor in Alberta, Canada.
And I'm your co-host, Ellie McCormick, a Christian longevity coach and mentor in the USA. Being single women over 50, we know what it's like to feel overlooked, to have unrealized dreams, to experience the challenges of singlehood, and to be concerned about what our future will look like. We couldn't find anything online for single Christian women over 50, so we created Jesus People Sisterhood just for you, a place where sisters encourage and empower one another through the last third of life, because you are a treasure trove of wisdom and of exceedingly great value. This is an authentic community, a supportive family, with other women on the same journey where Jesus is the center of it all. Here you will find real talk, real community, and real sisters.
Join us as we discuss building relationships, whole health, and growing spiritually. We'll review helpful books and articles, chat with guest speakers, share success stories, and have some laughs along the way. So grab your favorite beverage and we'll get started.
Welcome, sisters, to this episode of the Jesus People Sisterhood podcast, the only podcast specifically for single Christian women over 50. Today, we give a shout out to our sisters in Kentucky. Thank you for listening. It's a blessing to provide this podcast for free, but it does cost us to produce Jesus People Sisterhood episodes. It would be a great blessing to us that if you decide to buy a book mentioned in this podcast, you purchase it through the link in our episode show notes.
We want everyone to get to know our listeners, and so we'll be doing listener spotlight episodes from time to time. If you'd like to share your testimony of what the Lord is doing in your life currently, or if you're leading in ministry or another field and would like to tell us about that for a Jesus Sister Excelling in the Last Third episode, please contact us at support@jesuspeoplesisterhood.com. We would love to have our listeners come and share with the sisterhood. And now, let's get to today's episode.
Today's episode is part two of our conversation reflecting on a powerful idea inspired by the Diary of a CEO conversation with Chris Williamson. The idea that if we don't look honestly at where we've been, we may carry the same patterns right into the next year without meaning to. This episode isn't about pressure or reinvention. It's about awareness, wisdom, and inviting God into our reflection as single women over 50. We're talking about what 2025 revealed, what may need to shift, and how we can step into 2026 with more peace, clarity, and intention. If you've been sensing that quiet nudge to slow down and take stock, this episode is for you.
If you have not listened to part one, please go back and listen to the previous episode, episode 77 first. And now we pick up the discussion where we left off last week. Emotions. Oh, yeah, emotions, meaning, and the inner void. Okay, so for a bunch of guys, talking about emotions. And I think when Chris brought up the thing that I really liked was the feeling through those emotions. And we've talked about that before. When an emotion arises, it comes out of somewhere. And so what we have to do is say, oh, hello, emotion. Why is this here? Not to suppress it and push it down, but to say, oh, to acknowledge it and then to say, what are the origins and why do I feel this way? And I love that about what he had to say there. Learning to feel those emotions instead of suppressing them. I had some emotions come up when I was actually thinking about it. I've been wanting to make some changes in my life. And I just came upon this part where this emotion just sort of rose out of me. And I felt, wow, I haven't seen that in a long time. And I kind of thought I dealt with that. And no, I really hadn't. And when I was honest and I took a look at it, it was about death. It was about feeling like I'm going to lose people in my life. And I know that this is going to happen, but I don't want that. I want to put that off. I don't want to think about that. And so when he was talking about those sort of things, I started to think, yeah, I'm going to have to deal with some things in my life. Everybody does. And because of our humanness, which we've already stated, and I don't want to. And so what am I going to do that? And I'm going to sit in here and just sort of feel this for a little bit here and pray about it and give it to the Lord. And yeah, you can do things in your life, I guess, even though you're feeling those things, it's not going to break you to have them bubble up. You need to deal with them. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it also tells you about you and what's
Hmm.
important in your life.
Yeah.
And then when you shove that away,
Hmm.
you are not addressing probably something that God wants you to address
Hmm.
and dealing with probably the most important things in life,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
probably the things that are most important to you because that's
Hmm.
why you have emotions around it
Right.
and you're just putting it off. And so it's
Hmm.
probably the thing God wants you to deal with. I remember, and I don't know if this was around this topic. I think Chris was talking about, okay, so maybe there's a conversation you need to have with someone. You need to go back and apologize for something or
Hmm.
things like that, but you don't deal with it. And
Right.
I think as Christians, we can say, yeah, gosh, then that's important. We know
Hmm.
that's important.
Hmm.
We have
Yeah.
to apologize to someone, or we may have to say, you hurt me because the person doesn't realize it,
Yeah.
kind of get that reconciliation there.
Hmm. Yeah.
That wasn't the only example he gave. I mean, there was probably other things too. Like, you know, you need to deal with different things in your life and you're not
Right.
doing it.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. It could be jealousy, it could rage, it could be, it could be all kinds of emotions that are coming out in certain situations and
Mhm.
things where you do have to deal with those things. So, yeah. And once you do, then you can have meaningful change. You can say, "Oh, okay, I did need to grow there. My edges are, not quite so sharp in that area," or, "Oh, yeah." And that feels better too,
Mhm.
once you've
And I
once
think he
you
said something along those lines like, oh, then you have this peace.
right,
These
right.
things are nagging you and you keep putting it off and you're not dealing with it. But then
Yeah.
once you actually deal with it, then it's
Yeah.
done. Then this peace comes.
Yeah, that's true. The truth will set you free, right? You
Hmm.
once you're able to swim through the mire, you can look and go, oh. And sometimes it's not even as bad as you thought it was going to be. It was that just that fear of that obstacle there. So
Yeah.
yeah, hmm,
Or it was just something Satan didn't want you to do,
that too. That
right?
too.
And so therefore he made it look like it was going to be a lot worse than it really
Mhm.
was.
Yeah, yeah. Somewhere in there, conviction is built after action, not before. And I think that's true. Once you have experienced something, you've maybe conquered that or dealt with that, then you have that conviction. What about career choice and real world constraints? I loved this. I love this. I think we talked about this. You don't need to love your job to do it well, but think about this. Say you're really doing an okay job of your job, but it's not your passion. Think about if you were working in your passion, what kind of a job you could do, right? So if you're doing well now and you're like, you know, kind of going in and going through the motions, but what? What if every day you had passion about what you were doing? And I know we've had long conversations about this. Janine, I want to do what I'm passionate about. And I love that. And I was just thinking about that. All those people that are stuck out there, you sisters that are stuck out there in your jobs that are just mediocre and you're just kind of settling, right? Where wouldn't it be wonderful if you could work in something that you're absolutely passionate about? And I know that there's constraints of so many things. There's a lot of things that come around that to be, but the joy when you meet people who really love what they do, it bubbles out of them, doesn't it? Because they're in all that they do. Every day is new and every day has a prospect to be even better than the day before because they're just walking in their strengths and their passions. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I shared this on a different episode. I don't remember, but years ago I watched this so that people don't have to go back and listen to all the episodes. Although, if you want to, that's great.
Yeah.
Years ago, there was I think it was a National Geographic documentary on the living treasures of Japan. So in Japan, they
Hmm.
have human beings that they consider living national treasures. They're artisans who have knowledge and skills at different things. Like they have a sword maker and a fabric dyer and a ceramic maker,
Right.
these different people, and they're all old, obviously, because they have the traditional way of making all these different things.
Hmm.
And so I watched this documentary. It wasn't very long. It was very interesting. And I remember this one lady, older lady, she dyed fabric this blue color, which
Hmm.
you'll see. It's a certain type of blue in Japanese fabrics.
Hmm.
And all of these people are like in their 90s. And she said how every morning when she woke up, she couldn't wait to get out there and start working with the fabric and the dye. And this lady's 90 years old. She's been doing it all her life.
Wow.
And I just thought,
Hmm.
that's what I want. And I think they mentioned this in the Diary of a CEO episode of what it would be like to wake up in the morning and be excited about what you were going to do that day.
Hmm. Hmm. Yep.
And that's something that I've wanted since I saw that documentary, which was probably like 20 years ago.
Hmm.
Isn't that what God wants for us? Yes, there's probably going to be jobs that we have to do because it's what God's teaching us and training us and creating endurance and
Yep.
character qualities. Yes. So it may not be his plan for every one of us to find this job and
Hmm.
it's what we love and that's what we do our whole life.
Right.
But I think he does give us passions. As part of the learning is that when we
Hmm.
settle,
Right.
when we out of fear don't pursue things,
Right.
because we just want, well, we want the security of this, or we think we need to do
Hmm.
that for the money. It's our reasoning that is not correct.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
we're missing out on God's best for us because we're afraid of what we're going to lose if we pursue it.
Yeah. And we've got our ladder against the wrong wall, right? We're
Exactly.
just going up. We're just progressing through this thing, but it's not going to give us when we actually get up there and look around
Right. It
what
goes
are
back
maybe
to
God's best for us,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
the regrets of the dying, right?
The
That
regrets of
episode,
the dawn. Yeah,
episode
absolutely.
11
Right.
is
Yeah.
talk to people who are dying,
Hmm.
their regrets, all the things that they didn't do out of fear,
Yeah.
etc. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. They didn't put their ladder up, climb a different wall and do a different thing and do that thing that maybe was God's calling on their heart
Mhm.
all the time. Yeah. Wow. And another thing that they talked about here was how people have become so pragmatic in our societies, like especially in the Western world, in Canada and the US, and how everything has to be logical and very, what would be the word? Very structured. There's not a lot of optimism. People that are optimistic or people that seem like life they are carrying this happiness, for want of another word. They're often looked down on. They're often like, you must be crazy. You're just not seeing life as it really is. You have to get what you get and you have to get it now and you have to have this and you have to have that and you have to, but no, optimism is something that I think we lack. We lack and we laugh at people, that think that things are going to work out and that things are going to get better. And yes, obviously we're going to have our problems, but isn't it wonderful to be around somebody who's optimistic, somebody that sort of emanates off them? and you feel that kind of not a false, not a disingenuous sort of thing, but something that it just you feel like, yeah, okay, you can kind of ride their energy
Right.
and ride their hopefulness. And we as Christians are supposed to be hopeful. I mean, our hope is in Christ. It
Mhm.
is. And sometimes we're not really lights. Sometimes we're more like, I don't know, more like kitchen fires. That we're not really, yeah, it's just, oh, the whole world's falling down and it's all terrible, but our hope is in him. So yeah.
It's proven, I would say, from studies how one, if you're around positive people, then you will be more positive. And
Mhm.
two, and I'm not talking about toxic positivity, and I'm not
No,
talking about being totally unrealistic,
right.
but just in general, you can frame how you look at things, whether it's the glass is half full or half empty.
Exactly.
And that people who look at it as half full, if they're always look and having hope, is things tend to work out better.
You know, it's true.
It's just a fact of life. If you are in a negative mindset, what you think and what you believe is what's going to happen. Study after study shows that's what happens, and that it does affect everybody you're around.
Right.
And the people you're around, it's going to affect you. So you don't want to be around negative people, and you don't want to be
No.
negative yourself.
Right. Right. That inner circle is so important, your friends and who you pick and who you spend your time with. And yeah, very, very important. And then we come to a kind of a sort of a sadder part in the show there in what we were listening to. And it talks about relationships and stability. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. They start talking about the kind of relationships that you're having, and Stephen and Chris talk about, what would you look for in a partner now? And this is sort of, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a deviation, but still along the idea of who, what kind of relationships we'd have that keep us optimistic. And then I think Chris comes up with some ideas about how you choose a good partner. Now, of course, it's not going to have any of the Christian sort of content that we have, but he talks about choose partners who provide psychological stability, emotional regulation, and they're a safe harbor and don't give us any more chaos than we already have that's
Oh, I think
around us.
I must have missed this part.
Oh, did you miss that? Maybe you
Yeah.
tuned it out. I don't know,
Or
but yeah.
maybe it's later.
Um,
I didn't hear the whole
oh,
thing.
right.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was interesting. I think you do carry that peace inside of you when you know Christ. And I think people are looking for that safe harbor. I think they are looking for that. And I think in my youth, as I reflect, I always thought the better partners were more exciting. They were more adventurous. They were more, and not saying that you can't be those things. I'm just saying that the ones that were, yeah, that I was more inclined toward were, had a little bit of more energy. But now, in my old age, and even in my friendships, I value those who are calm and collected and people I feel safe around and that are constant. They have a constant temperament, and you know that they're going to give you the same answer and it's not going to be different another time. So yes, as you age, you may grow in that as well. But if I could talk to my younger self, I would be saying, "Hey, forget that. Look for this." And I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. And even though like they're not Christians, but that they would come to that part of, well, obviously psychological stability is important and emotional regulation, but just this safe harbor sort of thing kind of hit home with me. So, yeah. Anyway, so they dip around there, and then that's where they kind of talk about children and they talk about these sort of things. And they're both young men, like in their, I believe they're maybe Chris is a little bit older than Stephen, but in their 30s, 30, early 40s, something like that. And yeah, so it's interesting. Very interesting. It was an interesting discussion. So moving on, let's talk about the next piece that kind of comes. And they're talking about the kind of fears that we would have had when well, they were talking about cavemen. And so they were talking about fears that happen when have our fears changed over time? Our, modern problems. In the beginning, they were talking about how, most people in days of ancient times would have been fearful of bears and fearful of elements, the elements, or fearful of floods and fires and things like that. Whereas we aren't so fearful about that anymore. I mean, they do happen, but we're more fearful of maybe other people's opinions of us, or maybe more fearful of being involved in certain aspects of social life. And then I guess they were just talking how maybe people of ancient times would be really laughing at us because I mean, our situations aren't as dire as they were back then. It was a life and death is what I'm trying to say. Whereas today we've got sort of, what do they call it? Like first world problems where,
Hmm.
how many am I going to be able to wear this outfit today or drive my first car or my second car, or I'm going to be able to do those things. And so they just talked about that. But what was interesting was that yes, those people did have those sort of primitive fears and problems, maybe you could say, because even people who came to immigrate to our countries, they had to find shelter, they had to battle the elements, they had to do all those sort of things. But today, we also have some things that are true, and we've some of that focus has just kind of changed, and it's not so life and death. But we also have this shame of not performing, this shame of not adding up, of not being enough. And that's something that we have to look at. We have to too. We have to look at what are our fears and what are our problems and how do we navigate that now? Like, what are our best steps forward? This is also when he goes on to talk about how you can catapult yourself out of some of these fears and some of these problems by using some of the things that we've internalized, that kind of the chip on the shoulder, the not having the right job, the not having the special things in life that our neighbors have, that we as single Christian women maybe have a harder time meeting our financial goals, or we feel somehow abandoned by people in our past, or using those things to give us the impetus to kind of push off and do some new things and make some new goals and aim for things that are higher, to use that discontentment that we feel in our lives as fuel. And I think that that's true. I think that it can be managed to do that.
Well, how did he explain how that catapults? Is that you like get angry?
Well, my understanding is that you can, yeah, I guess you can use that energy, whatever that energy would be, to give you enough movement to get started, right? So where you can, even if you think that you're having a bad day or a bad year or you can still draw energy from some of those things to push you forward. And he just gave an example of this rocket, how it kind of is on the pad and it has to let those, what are they, so the booster rockets or the rockets that get you going, and
Hmm.
then you know how you sort of split apart and then you go on with a new piece of the rocket. Well, the very first part where it's just those thrusters are pushing you, you can use some of that sort of negativity to get you started and moving in the right direction, and I think that's kind of true. Yeah,
Yeah, I think going, and I don't know if we already mentioned this, I remember them talking about how if you're not really happy with your job, but it's okay, or you're
Mhm.
not really happy with your partner, but it's okay,
Yeah.
and that your life is just kind of mediocre,
Yeah.
you're not really excited about it, but it's not bad. It's
Right.
not discontent enough to move you forward. And I think
Hmm.
that I can see, I can understand that. Is that that's really a negative. It's like you
Hmm.
really need something really, really negative and bad to be
Right.
happy in your life to
To
get you to do
mhm.
something about it. Because if
Right.
you're partner
Settling.
or your,
Mm.
your boyfriend or yeah, well, we're all girls here. Your boyfriend is like
Yeah.
he's okay. You don't not
Yeah.
really in love with him, but it's okay and it's nice, to have somebody. So you
Comfortable.
stay in that relationship instead of
Yeah.
finding a wonderful relationship, right? So
Right.
let's say he's a terrible, terrible guy. It'd be better if
Yeah.
he was a terrible, horrible guy that mistreated you than you say,
Oh.
like them people watching if your life were a movie saying, "Get rid of him, he's a jerk." You say, "Yes, I got to get out of this relationship." To
Yeah.
something to catapult you to make a
Right.
change and say, "I'm cutting off this relationship and I'm leaving this job," because
Yeah.
if it's not bad enough, then you stay stuck in it.
It's true.
So I get
It's
that.
true.
Totally get.
Familiarity, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, why? I mean, I'm here, I'm fed, I'm watered, and the job is
Yeah.
mediocre, but it's okay.
Yeah, but
You
yeah,
know,
I don't want to lose I want to have a job and I like being in a relationship even if things aren't
right?
very great.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's right. Yeah, and he's not that bad. I mean, and look around. I mean, the other ones might be not quite as attainable, or I might have to do something. I might have to work on myself, for goodness sake. I might have to get more education, or I might have to try a little harder or something. Yeah, it's easy, I think, to just get stuck in complacency, and this is kind of where I am, but having a little bit of a fire sometimes. But of course, we don't wish any terrible things on anybody. But sometimes, I mean, that has been the time in my life where I have come out of the ashes of the like the phoenix, right? I suppose
Hmm.
that's a bad analogy, but it's not in a way as you've pretty much come to the end of yourself, and then you have to claw your way back out and find out what your metal is. What are you really
Right,
made of, right?
right.
So
When it's
obviously,
a choice of am I going to lay down and die
exactly.
or am I going to get up and fight?
Exactly. And that's exactly what my dad said after my divorce. And I think I shared that with you. He's like, you can just lie here and walk and all your or what are you gonna do? Well, you're gonna get up, and it's true. Yeah, it's something that unfortunately, yeah, we might need the impetus to move forward to do that. Okay. So final takeaways. Life doesn't happen to you. So this is agency. And he talks about agency, and I think that that's true. You participate in it. You can have that whole mentality that life just kind of comes at you and you have to bat it off, or you can take agency and you can participate in it. You can manipulate things and you can be an active actor on your stage. All the world's a stage. Isn't that what Shakespeare said? It doesn't necessarily happen to you, but I think of people that go through a lot of trauma over and over and lots of things that do happen can feel that way. And we don't ever want you to feel that way, sisters. We want you to remember that you are an active participant in your life and your life is happening now. And you can make changes and make choices that really can help you out and change your life. So, and then they talk about never try. Well, if you never try, you never fail, I guess, but also you never live. You never
Hmm.
live. Some of the stupid things I've done that I maybe wouldn't possibly attempt at my age now taught me a lot of things. I didn't know. I just stepped out and tried something, and I gleaned a lot of information from that. But I also didn't ever have to say, "Oh, I would like to try that," because I wouldn't go back and do that again. That's for sure. I don't know. I think of wanting to be a driving instructor, and I don't even know why I would have wanted to be a driving instructor, but there was something that came into my brain at a certain time where I was just, that's the job for me. I don't know. I was, yeah, and I got this close, but then I failed the final, and so I rolled through a stop sign. So, oh, so embarrassing. But yeah, it's kind of funny. Still, if you don't try, you don't know. And definitely have had some occupations where I definitely don't ever want to do that again, for sure.
Right.
And he talks about urgency, so acting with urgency. But he also talks about, this is Chris, he talks about humility and compassion for others. And I think that that's just a given for us as Christians. We want to be humble. We want to have compassion for ourselves and for others. And sometimes we don't have a lot of compassion for ourselves. And we don't see the successes that we've actually had or the things that we've been through. And we don't honor ourselves by saying, hey, yeah, okay, I may be in this situation, but look at what I've come through. Look what the Lord has done in my life. Look at these things that have happened. Look at how he's changed so many things and worked all that I have been through for his good and for his will. I mean, that's the wonderful thing, I think.
A couple comments. One on trying stuff and failing. I
Yeah.
think I've heard many times over that some of the most successful people, and of course, this is talking about worldly success, people who
Hmm.
are successful at business or whatever,
Yep.
that when you interview any of them, you take a
Hmm.
poll, whatever,
Yeah.
is that you'll find that they've had lots of failures before they were a success.
True.
What often sets these people apart is that they try.
Right.
Failure is a part of life.
Yeah.
And the part that sets us apart are people who don't even try because they're afraid of failing,
Yeah.
or they try, they fail, and then that's it. They never try again.
Yeah. It's
As
true.
believers, we just shouldn't be in that situation. We should just be, okay, what is God calling me to? And not
Right.
walking in fear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing was, what did he say? You said that Chris was talking about urgency. What was
Mm.
what was his reasoning behind that? And could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, well, my understanding is, that we are only given so much time. You need to get with it. You need to get on it. You need to be in the game, right? And to, yeah, just not put it off, like not think that you're going to get that chance again, because it may not. It may not happen again. And I think that's the urgency. I cannot think about what exactly his example for that was, but just the whole idea of us of what we do matters to others. We do not live alone, right? And so what we do, there's people always looking at you. It's like being a teacher. There's always somebody looking at you. You have children, there's always somebody looking at you, and you may not even know what is happening, but you are a role model. You are somebody that is, and especially, at our age where people they're looking for that safe harbor. They're looking for those sort of things. So it's something that we need to be aware of, that you get the one life to live. And I know that that sounds so secular, but it's true. That's what we are, that's what we're offered to. And you've talked about it many times. Sisters, get out there and get off your bottoms and get going and do something. Participate. This is not a dress rehearsal. You definitely don't get do-overs, right? I mean, you may get do-overs in certain things, but you don't get to be 35 again, right? You don't get to be 45, 55, right? So, yeah, those are some of the things and the takeaways that he talked about. Life doesn't happen to you, you participate in it. You have to try again. Stop waiting for your life to begin. I think that all of us spend time, trying to do that. Just, oh, I'll get it together when I do this and when
Right.
I do that, and then all of a sudden you're older and you don't have that time back.
Yeah. When I get this, it's going to be good. When I get that, it's good. Then it's
Yeah.
on to the next thing, and never getting to a place in your life where you're content or when you're just enjoying your
Hmm.
life,
Hmm.
right? You're
Hmm.
content and you're just living life and loving
Hmm.
people and just being
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm not always waiting for my life to begin
Yeah.
sometime in the future.
Right. Right. And just living in the now and appreciating the people right in front of you, just appreciating what they lend to your life and just how fleeting it is, the time that you actually get to spend with those that you love, right? And not that we won't again on the other side, but this now until we're rejoined again, right?
Hmm.
It's so important. It's really, really important. So I think that you actually showed me about this, and I know you follow Diary of a CEO quite a lot, and I'm so glad that you wanted to discuss this with me today. And I think that Stephen Bartlett and Chris Williamson did a great job of discussing these things, and I can certainly see why they have the followings that they do, and I appreciate the input and the whole podcast. And I think there's something for our sisters to get out of it. Wouldn't you say? There's something to glean here. There's something to, and if in any way that I've misrepresented something, you need to listen to it yourself, make notes yourself. And I would highly recommend that people do listen to it. And there's a lot to learn. And I think back to the part that just because they're not a Christian thing, or at least they don't appear to be, they didn't say, and I think Chris was asked and he said, no, I'm not religious. But we can always learn something, can't we? We can always learn something. There's always something that we can glean from these things. And for the sake of time, we're pausing the conversation here. We'll pick up the discussion next week in part three of reviewing 2025 to make 2026 great.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please share any thoughts that resonated with you from today's podcast episode in our private Facebook group at Jesus People Sisterhood community. Start reaching out to other single women and create your local group of Jesus People Sisters. Please let us know about your group to add to our directory by contacting us at support@JesusPeopleSisterhood.com.
Have you had a good experience with a business? They've treated you honestly and helped you at a reasonable price? Please let us know. We would like to start a directory of JPS-friendly businesses. Let's care for one another.
Be blessed by Him who is able to protect you from stumbling and to make you stand in the presence of His glory, blameless and with great joy. Until next time. Hey, sister, before you go, thank you for listening. If you found value in today's podcast, the best way to say thank you is by leaving a 5-star written review at Apple Podcasts. That raises us in the rankings and helps other sisters find us too. And please tell a friend or post it on your social media. If you're a single Christian woman over 50, this podcast was created specifically for you. The Jesus People Sisterhood is your community to find support and friendship with other sisters who can understand. Be sure to follow us on your podcast app and join our free private Facebook group at Jesus People Sisterhood Community.
Jesus People Sisterhood has also started a private Facebook group for housing and co-living opportunities. You can check that out at Jesus People Sisterhood Senior Housing. You can also find us on Facebook at Jesus People Sisterhood and individually for Janine at riseupcoachingandconsulting.com and for Ellie at samaramountain.com. And ladies, this is the necessary disclaimer. Our podcast content is for informational purposes and does not constitute professional advice from mental health, medical, legal, financial, or other areas. The opinions of the guest do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host. It is our heart that this podcast will be a blessing to you. Together, let's build a powerful sisterhood with Jesus. Make a friend, add a sister, across the border and around the world.